recording. Alrighty, and I am now going to make my screen. Okay. Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm with Other People's Movies, and today we are going to be ranking Quentin Tarantino's movies. Not an easy thing to do. Not an easy thing to do at all. When a filmmaker is as consistently very good to great as he has been throughout the course of his nine movies, it's kind of trivial to rank his movies because they're all pretty darn good. I mean, they're all pretty darn good,
Yeah.
and it kind of pains me to say that, and I'll get into that as to why a little bit throughout the podcast. But my experience with Quentin Tarantino, I mean, let me elaborate on that slightly. It kind of pains me to say that because he's just so aware of how good he is. You
Yeah.
see that in his movies, you see that in his interviews, and in some ways you can't blame the guy because how can he not? How could he not be?
Yeah.
He is that good.
Yeah.
His ego is earned. So I come at this as a fan. So yeah, my experience. I got started on Quentin Tarantino. I am proud to say I was there from the pretty much very beginning. I remember hearing about this up and coming guy who had done this really edgy, cool little movie called Reservoir Dogs. I did not see it in theaters, but I did see it on VHS the weekend it was released. The weekend it was available for rental, I saw it on VHS. So it wasn't right away. I didn't see it on in theaters. I wasn't quite that cool, but I did see it right away. And man, it lived up to the hype. I was blown away by it. And I was quickly taken in by this guy. I devoured every interview I could find. And I was excited because Tony Scott was directing one of his scripts, which of course later became True Romance. Oliver Stone was directing one of his scripts, which of course later became Natural Born Killers. And I loved this guy. I loved what he was doing. He was making these cool little independent movies, and he was writing a movie for John Woo supposedly at the time, which never came to fruition. But he was just doing all these cool things. He was this cool little secret that I had all to myself. And then Pulp Fiction came out, and it was just it was everybody knew who he was. And I remember as already being familiar with him, I remember very well that seeing Pulp Fiction. I believe it was that opening Friday night. I was in a theater, and the crowd, it was a full theater. The crowd was electric. It erupted into cheers when the opening credits began, and Amanda Plummer, every one of you, any one of you fucking pigs moves, and I'll execute every one of you. And the music starts. It was just one from Reservoir Dogs to True Romance to Natural Born Killers to Pulp Fiction. It was one thrill after another, and it was just an exciting time to love movies and Quentin Tarantino. And like I said, he kind of broke my heart a little bit because he became everybody's favorite filmmaker after Pulp Fiction. Like everybody became aware of him. So he was no longer my cool, hip little secret. And I never quite forgave him for that. But at the same time, you got to share him with the world because he's pretty freaking amazing. And we'll get into why, hopefully, as we rank his movies. Luke, how were you? What was your introduction to Quentin Tarantino? What's your history with him?
Yeah. I wish that I could say that I had the same introduction. I found him in college, Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I had like throughout most of my younger years, I'd wanted to become a filmmaker, and then I kind of got pushed off that track. I thought that a business track was more realistic, and then one of my I was kind of aware of Pulp Fiction, but I didn't want to have anything to do with it because it had John Travolta in it, and I was just like, I can't stand that guy. I don't want to go see one of his movies. And one of my friends from back home was like, "No, I think you should. I think you should give it a try. You'll be surprised." And so I was like, "Okay." So a bunch of my friends from my freshman dorm, our hall, we all went to see it together. And it was a bonding thing, and I was blown away. Shortly thereafter, I was like, maybe I should, go give filmmaking a try. Maybe I should.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, yeah, maybe, like he was the one who was just like, yeah, movies can be cool. Making movies, it maybe it's something worth giving a try, because he it wasn't huge. Like I was really into the science fiction, Star Wars type stuff,
Mhm.
and it wasn't. And then I was kind of disappointed with the prequel that came out, but it came out at a different time. But yeah, the Pulp Fiction. Do you remember when Pulp Fiction came out?
1994, October of 1994.
October. So that was so I definitely saw Pulp Fiction then before I saw the episode one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of oh man, 1994. That was. I mean, that's a real throwback. But it was just so cool. It was like I didn't know that filmmaking could be so cool.
Yeah.
That films could be so cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I was just like, and I mean, I came up with the guys I grew up with were just world class shit talkers. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, to be cool, you had to be able to, deliver lines real fast, and be like,
right.
real fast with comebacks and just like, well, like Tarantino was it, that. Yeah. And then when I I'd seen Pulp Fiction, I went back home and some friends said, well, you haven't seen Reservoir Dogs? What are you, some kind of like fucking communist or something like that? No, but I was just like, what are you talking about? He's made more movies?
Yeah.
And I was blown away by then I went to see I rented Reservoir Dogs and then that was it. I was just like, I was Tarantino fan from then on.
Nice. Yeah, I already had the filmmaking bug before Quentin Tarantino came along, but I'll tell you, he reinforced it big time for me. Like I wanted to be a filmmaker before Tarantino. I saw nothing else after Tarantino. Like Tarantino was what I wanted to be. And another reason why I can't quite forgive him is because he became everything I wanted to be. So it's just like, but it's cool enough that I got to witness it happen to him. Now that I'm mature enough to say that, like I said, it was just when he got to start, when Pulp Fiction came out, and when those early movies and early scripts of his were getting made, man, that was one of the most thrilling times ever to love movies. It was just one of the most thrilling times. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on with the ranking. All right. So number 9. Again, not a bad movie. Not a bad movie by any stretch. There are moments of greatness in it, and we'll get into that in a second. But The Hateful Eight. It's the one that I really wanted to make sure that I rewatched for this podcast, and I'm glad I did, because I still would rank it at the very bottom of his films. But I liked it. I like it more every time I see it. I've seen it now 3 times, and it's cleverness, it's wit, it's just everything that makes Tarantino. It's a truly entertaining movie with moments of greatness. It suffers from pretty inconsistent pacing. I think it's a far too long movie. I think it's quite a bit indulgent. It's definitely one of his more indulgent movies. As I watch the movie, I'm totally compelled by moments of it, and then as it goes on and it goes further into Tarantino's long-winded dialogue scenes, my mind wanders quite a bit throughout the movie. It's been that way every time I've seen it. It needed to be tighter. I think with that kind of claustrophobic location, at least within the cabin. I know it's got some beautiful exteriors, but that claustrophobic location, just everything about it should have been a tight 2-hour movie, not a sprawling 2-hour 45-minute, epic.
Yeah.
I just think that was it was a tad too indulgent. But that being said, it's the difference between it being an A movie and a B plus movie. So it's Tarantino's worst movie, but it's still pretty darn good. It's still pretty darn good,
Yeah.
and it's got a great score by Ennio Morricone.
Yeah.
What do you think of it, Luke?
Well, I don't like you. I don't hate any of his movies. Um, I mean, it's shot in 70 millimeter. You know,
Mhm.
it is a gorgeous film,
Yeah,
and
Robert
that
Richardson, man.
that extra gravitas. You know, I think it does give it a little bit more of an epic feeling. It the characters are all so well developed. I
Hmm.
mean, um, Walter Goggins' character.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
was it Walton Goggins?
Walton Goggins. Yeah,
Walton Goggins. He is such a great actor.
yes,
I mean,
I
and
love him. I love him.
he always plays, you know, these lovable scumbags.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and they are and there isn't a single there isn't a single poor performance in the film.
No,
It-
no.
which
There
I
never
mean,
is in one of his movies.
yeah, yeah. I think that that there are maybe some choices that the actors I wish hadn't made, but that is less the case in Hateful Eight
Yeah.
for me personally. Um, I like all of his movies. I think that I understood why he shot why he edited the sequences as he did.
Mhm.
Like that was Hateful Eight the first of his movies without Sally, his editor.
I don't believe so. That's a good question. She passed away. I want to say Inglorious Bastards was the last movie
Okay.
she edited, but don't quote me on that. I looked
Yeah.
that up, but I don't have it written down and I can't remember. Or do I have it written down? No, I
Well,
don't have it written down.
it,
Uh,
it's well it
I know she didn't. She did not edit Hateful Eight.
yes. So I don't think she edited Inglorious Bastards either.
Okay.
For me, I would rank Inglorious Bastards below Hateful Eight.
Okay.
For me,
Okay.
that having been said, it's Inglorious Bastards is still a great movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I mean that we'll get to Inglorious Bastards.
Yeah.
Let's Hateful Eight. What more can be? It. I mean, did it need to be edited more tightly? Probably.
Yeah.
But I don't. What would you have had him eliminate from it? From that cut?
Just chunks of dialogue. Just tighten. Not necessarily any scenes. Just tighten the scenes. Like those scenes in that dialogue goes on and on and on. 2 hours might be a little too tight, but at least I think it could have been a very solid 2 to 2 hour and 15 minute movie. I just tighten it. Let the pacing move. Yeah. I can't think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that the reason why I think that he was trying to insert a level of discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uncomfortability in the slower pace, the longer pace helped drag that out.
Gotcha.
And you know, there was a certain point in which he said, Channing Tatum's character said something about how it was that they just had to wait the other guys to wait for them to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Eventually they would, and that's when they would get him.
Yeah.
And I think that he was trying to build that tension, and the slow burn, pardon me, was supposed to add to it. And I think that it really would have been hard to cut any of that out because of that. If a faster pace, I think might have actually hurt the film
Okay.
in that way.
Interesting. See, for me, the pacing was so sluggish at times that I lost interest in the movie at times.
Yeah,
So I get what you're saying, and maybe when
yeah,
I watch it again a few years down the road, maybe I'll try to look at it with a different set of eyes. But for me, I wanted Reservoir Dogs tightness.
yeah,
I wanted more of a staccato rhythm with the dialogue. I just wanted I wanted snappier, snappier, snappier. To
yeah,
me, the leisurely pace that it had at times, and like you said, maybe it was increasing the discomfort. I would argue that he uses that pacing quite well for some of his other movies, but um, quite effectively. But
oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting.
Like the interrogate, yeah,
Yeah,
like the interrogation scene at the beginning of Inglorious Bastards.
yeah.
That's just a fantastic
Yes,
scene.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely it is.
Yeah. So
And
that long,
I wouldn't cut a moment of that scene. But that's a
yeah, yeah,
scene, and I don't know how long that is. But for me, Hateful Eight is almost like a movie that plays like a really long scene that's lasting too long.
yeah. Well, and again, that may have had something to do with that. I mean, the stagecoaches. I mean, our society is so fast paced.
Yeah,
You know, we're used to getting from A to B. You know, vast distances. You know, are crossed in a very short period of time. Back then, stagecoaches. You know, for better or worse, they had to be more leisurely because
right,
you just you couldn't get to the next town. You know, in less than half of a day.
right, right, right. Interesting.
Um, but you know, I at the same time, I mean, I know what you mean about the. It's a long movie. I mean, we are film lovers. We
Yeah,
don't mind long movies as much as some people do.
yeah,
So for us to say that a movie is too long, that means something.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I like a short
and,
movie. I like a short movie. I will be the first to admit that. I like a shorter movie.
yeah,
But don't get
yeah,
me wrong, some of my favorite movies are 3 hour plus movies. I love some long
yeah,
movies. So and I love leisurely pacing when it's earned.
yeah, yeah,
I felt like Hateful Eight suffered. I felt like it would have been cracking
yeah,
if it was fast. It would have been a cracking movie. But yeah,
yeah. Yeah. I can't argue with you that
yeah,
it does hurt. It does. I mean, I think that it would have had more fans if it had been a tighter film.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Number eight. And I count these as one movie, and I believe Quentin Tarantino does too. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Again, uh, you know, they are one complete movie. I can't take them as separate movies because I don't think they're complete without
Yeah.
each other. The first half is dependent on the second half. I think that he's experimenting with genre, he's experimenting with form, he's having a lot of fun with this movie, and it's there's some great filmmaking in the Kill Bill movies.
Yeah. Absolutely.
There's I again B plus. Uh, my major pay again my main it's a bit more fun at times than Hateful Eight is, which is why I ranked it above Hateful Eight. But my complaint is the same. It's way too sluggishly placed. There's way too much fat on Kill Bill,
Yeah.
especially Volume 2. I think it should have been one complete epic, balls out 3.5 hour movie. That's a 3.5 hour movie I would have sat through if they would have tightened Kill Bill and made it one complete experience. That's a 3.5 hour movie I would have gladly sat through. But it didn't work separating it in two, and he really needed Quentin Tarantino, rightfully so, as I have said, loves his own work. Uh, and you see that in Kill Bill as much as you do Hateful Eight because so much of it is precious to him and he just can't get rid of it. And there's
Yeah.
so much fat on Kill Bill. I can't, it's been a
Yeah.
little while, honestly, since I've sat through both points. So I can't name specific points in the movie, but I mean, there are plenty of specific points I can name. Michael Madsen is, as much as I like Michael Madsen, there's way too much dwelling on him. There's way too much dwelling on Daryl Hannah in part two.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's those characters should have been
Agreed.
quick, quick, quick. Uh, um, but part two, I partially prefer over part one if I had to choose them, because it at least has the emotional gravitas. It at least has
Yeah.
it has everything come together in a satisfying emotional way.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But again, even separated, even as it is now, I long for the day Quentin Tarantino does edit together one massive. I supposedly it exists. I don't know why we haven't seen it yet, but I would love to see one massive cut of Kill Bill, and I think it would have been best as one movie and one tighter movie. But what do you think, Luke?
I totally agree with you. I do not like the scenes that I don't like Volume 2 nearly as much as I like Volume 1.
Okay.
The Michael Madsen's moments in it, and Daryl Hannah's moments, and even David Carradine's moments. They were all just so rambling, and
Rambling
it was
and
like,
not dramatically. They
yeah,
just didn't have dramatic punch.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It with Kill Bill there's this thing called The Whole Bloody Affair. Is that a
Yeah.
documentary or
No. That's the supposed edit of it all together. That's the supposed
for?
that's the supposed edit of parts one and two.
And it hasn't been released.
As far as I know, no.
Okay, so it's on IMDb
Yeah,
as 4 hours and 7 minutes.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, okay. I mean, I loved Michael Parks being in both.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he was so great as that sheriff, and then when he was the pimp in the second, I was just like, he is such a good. I mean, he is an underused actor, and like when he has made his appearances, it's been it. I mean, that having been noted, it didn't save it. I loved most the Pai Mei scenes,
Mm-hmm.
and who is like a real stock character in Chinese cinema.
Gotcha.
The Kill Bill movies are an homage to Chinese and Japanese. What happened here? You went into a tab for some reason. What's happened? So it's an homage to those martial arts films from the 70s and 80s, and he has said like that something about he doesn't do homage, he steals that you steal from great artists, and if you want to be great yourself. And I understand exactly what he means. There's so much that translates directly from some of those other films directly into Kill Bill.
Right.
And what I don't I keep getting distracted by things happening in the room. It's not translating on this side of the screen for some reason. What's Uma Thurman's character is really well acted, really well written. And what I remember that there's that part where she was driving and then she got into a car accident, and I've seen the footage of that where she's been injured, and you see Quentin getting into the frame to comfort her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's awful. It's heartbreaking when you watch it.
Yeah. You're talking about the behind the scenes footage?
Behind this, exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, she was worried that she should have had a stunt driver for that, and he coaxed her into doing it. Said he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then he must have felt so guilty.
Sure.
He must have I mean, I made me kind of tear up a little bit when I saw it because I couldn't imagine what he was going through. I've been in a fatal car accident myself,
Sure, sure,
and it uh, it's as a survivor, it's just the absolute worst kind of trauma. You can't. Oh
sure,
well,
sure.
that, I'm sure there are other. You can't really compare trauma, but you don't you don't recover from that in a snap. And I understand why Uma Thurman, had a hard time forgiving him.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
that, and it really uh, it really illustrates the low quality of um, Weinstein's character.
sure, sure,
That he was completely unwilling
sure,
help out Uma Thurman at all, and help her recover from her.
sure.
She
Yeah.
that's just really really shitty.
Yep,
And
yep. There's a lot of shady stuff going on behind some of
yeah,
our favorite movies, and that's one of the realities we have to live with as movie lovers.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
It's
Yep.
Hollywood has some explaining to do.
Yeah. They sure do. They sure do.
But the the earlier scenes in Kill Bill 1, that when I came out of the theater, I mentioned to someone else in the just I saw it on my own. When I saw it in the theater, was talking to just some other theater goers. I said, "Yeah, we just witnessed a perfect film there."
Yeah. Which one?
The first one.
Kill Bill Volume
I,
One.
yeah, when
Okay.
I saw I was just like, I was
Interesting.
so happy
Okay.
with it.
Okay. Well, I had very much the opposite reaction.
You felt
I
like it wasn't finished.
I thought it was I thought it was unfinished. I thought I
Yeah.
saw an incomplete movie. I thought I saw an incomplete movie. But hey, that's awesome. All
No.
right.
Well, I was not in the realm of thinking where he I hadn't read anything about it probably the way that you had. You are a greater student of Tarantino than I am.
Yeah.
I so I think that you probably knew that there was that volume 2 was definitely going to be coming, and I had heard rumors that there was going to be a volume 2,
Mm-hmm.
but and that maybe even volume 3, but I mean I I don't remember if I'd read anything about it on IMDb or if that even existed at the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember. There's a lot about that. When did volume 1 come out?
2000. I don't know. I don't know. I should write down the dates. I'll do that from now on. But
It,
I
what,
was in LA at the time, so I think it would have been uh 2002-ish, 2003-ish. I think.
what doesn't? Yeah, that doesn't matter. The what they uh it what does matter is that you're right. Ultimately, it was not complete without volume 2,
Hmm.
and I think a volume 3 would be a disservice
Yeah.
to both of the
I don't
originals.
need a volume three. There's been talk
Yeah.
of a volume three. There's rumor that he might do it. I don't think there needs to be. I think that I like I
Why?
said, the most I want to see is that edit of the two movies together. That's
Yeah.
the most I want to see any further from Kill Bill. So,
Yeah, I agree.
all right.
I agree.
Moving on to Inglorious Bastard, or I just gave it away. Moving on to number 7, which is Inglorious Bastards.
Hmm.
Now, this movie, I remember seeing it the opening night it came out with a group of friends in Chicago. It was exhilarating. It was fun. It's a very well made movie. Um, you know, I just it's great. It's great camera winking revisionist history done in a way that only Quentin Tarantino can do. Why is it ranked below other movies? It's right on the cusp of being between very good and great because I think that maybe it goes on a little too long, and or actually it's edited weird because it goes on too long in certain spots. I'd have to watch it again to be more specific today, but I have very specific recollections of it being too long in spots and too rushed in others. It's a little uneven. Its pacing's a little
Yeah.
jagged. That's the overriding complaint I have about Inglorious Bastards is that it's not quite the most even watching experience. Like Quentin Tarantino's best movies, and we're about to get into those, are very smooth experiences. And Inglorious Bastards just wasn't quite smooth. But that being said, there's a lot to love about it. It's probably an A minus, if not an A. And well, A minus. I wouldn't quite give it an A because I have some problems with it. But like you said, the opening scene. I mean, Christoph Waltz. I mean, man, what a discovery! What a
Yeah.
discovery.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
This was the movie that really brought him to our attention. And Brad Pitt is amazing as usual. Eli Roth is great in it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just endless array. Oh gosh, the girl, Melanie. I'm not. Is it Melanie? I think it's Melanie Laurent, but it might be Melanie. I might just be. But she's a great director too. She's a terrific actress. She's a great director, and I love her in that movie. I wish there were more of her in the movie. I think she's a little underutilized in the movie, but like I said, it's a cool movie. It's a really cool movie. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on it?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's actually my least favorite. Eli Roth said something about how for a movie titled The Inglorious Bastards, the bastards are hardly in it at all.
I agree.
For
That is a complaint.
For a World War II movie, there's no war.
Yeah.
It's the best thing about it is I think that the fantasy fulfillment for every person who is a fan of social justice, Hitler gets killed. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, and Eli Roth got to be the man who killed Hitler.
Yeah, the Jewish cast member got to kill Hitler.
Yeah, what a great moment for him.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, the opening scene that we've already mentioned is such a great, tight scene, you know, and I think that it must be something similar that must have been experienced by the people who betrayed Anne Frank's family. You know, with Anne Frank and her family, they had secreted them away behind a cabinet or a bookcase, you know, and they were in an attic, and this the Nazi Jew hunters they I don't know if someone turned them in or what, but you know, like they must be like, we know that you're hiding them somewhere, but if you point them out, we might spare you, or your punishment will be more lenient, or whatever. And you know that horrible tension, you know, that we can only imagine how it went down, because Anne Frank didn't write about that in her diary,
right?
You know, so and Tarantino brought us into that moment. So I think that period pieces serve a great function, that they help us understand what people in other time periods might have experienced.
Right.
You know, there's historians can only do so much to illustrate, you know, those moments for us, but really it takes other media to, you know, either plays or historical novels or movies or video games to really help illustrate that, you know, that much more, so that we can empathize with those people and learn from the lessons of history, rather than just keep repeating them. We have to understand why it's wrong to subjugate people just because of, you know, the identity of their birth.
Sure.
It's wrong to subjugate other people for any reason.
Sure.
But unless they're serial killers or child rapists or something like that.
Sure.
But that I mean the the Nazis are are not to be admired, and those who
Yeah.
do admire them are do so at their peril
Well,
for no good reason. And I Inglorious Bastards is not my favorite of Tarantino's films, but it is a great film,
yeah.
and I am really grateful that it was made.
Yeah, very
Uh,
cool. I am too.
yeah.
I am too. I think it's a really cool movie, and I just looked it up. I believe that was the last movie that Sally Menke edited for
Okay. Cool.
Tarantino, which is kind of interesting because I would have thought that, given my issues with its pacing and its editing, I would have thought that maybe she didn't edit it. But
Yeah.
uh,
I don't. There are a lot of choices in that movie that I just don't understand at
yeah,
all. That Inglorious Bastards is the Tarantino film that I understand the least.
okay.
It's not. It's I
How many
don't.
times have you seen it?
I've seen it. I saw it in the theater. I don't know if I've seen it more than once.
Okay. Okay.
It's not.
I've seen it 3, 4 times, and I
Yeah.
think, I think it's a valuable movie. I would recommend giving it another chance.
I've seen
Yeah,
clips of it several times,
sure, sure.
and there are especially that opening scene and the the scenes with where Brad Pitt talks to the troops. He wants his scalps.
Sure.
I uh, and there are Tarantino esque moments from it.
Hmm.
That, no, there are. I shouldn't say. There are moments that are uh, so Tarantino esque that uh, I they make me want to know more about the history in that world. Like,
Yeah.
why did Brad Pitt's character have the rope scar
Yeah.
around his neck?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, why same thing in Pulp Fiction. Why does Ving Rhames' character have the band-aid across the back of his?
Right. Right.
You know,
Right.
uh, so but there are other things that I think this didn't need to be in it. That the
Mhm.
this the murder of the blonde woman by that character. I
Right.
didn't understand why her character was really in the film at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm not talking about the
No. No. No.
blonde
I know
woman
who
who
you're talking
escaped.
about. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm talking about I can't even remember her name right at the
I
top of my
can't
head. She's
remember
a
her name either.
great German actress.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but there there are it's I understand his other movies so much better than I do Inglorious Bastards.
Gotcha.
And I want to see it again so that I can, but I didn't want to put down the 13 bucks or whatever it would have cost to buy it. So
Sure. Sure. I believe.
is it? It's not. I don't know.
I can't remember. I wanted to say no. I can't remember. That's too bad. I liked her performance. Yes, she
Yeah,
was a
she's a good
smaller
actress.
role. She was a smaller role, but I thought she did a stupendous job, and it was an interesting movie. So
Yeah,
I'll have to write that down. Yeah, yeah.
I when it streams, I will definitely watch it again.
Please do, please do.
Yeah,
All right, and from here on in, 6 through number 1, these are all great movies. I mean,
yeah,
so these are great movies. The other ones are very good movies with some flaws. These movies that I'm about to name here, I in ranking them, it's purely subjective. It's purely
yeah.
just my personal enjoyment of them. So we'll just go down the list here, but I mean, I'm not going to have a lot of insight into each of these movies other than it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great. So uh, Django
Oh,
Unchained, number 6. Uh, Christoph Waltz, Jamie Foxx,
okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio, their dialogue, the filmmaking, the rocket sounds with the gunshots, the excessive blood, the sensational violence, the winking at the camera with the horse at the end and her plugging her.
Yeah.
It's all just Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino is making a grindhouse movie about slavery here, and as bad as that may seem on paper, it's pretty freaking cool to see.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's just it's a great it's a great movie. Uh, yeah, yeah. What do you think?
I um when I was in college, and you know, my friends and I were making student films. I wanted to make a film that just coated the whole film with violence, and that was that as a theme, that it was just covered in blood, and and it would the violence would be necessary and justified, but it would also be fun to watch the villains, really get theirs. And there are, I mean, you have that in Dead Alive, where they're getting they have the lawnmower scene where they're just cutting through the zombies, and you have that in very few other movies. They have it in Django Unchained toward the end, where Jamie Foxx's character Django is uh, just cutting through those slavers and it's great. It's really cathartic.
Yeah,
You know,
cathartic is a great word for that movie. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, those. I mean, I hated all those characters so much. That Django's character had even a moment um of discomfort. I wanted to apologize for the whole time. Yeah. I wanted in my eyes, his character was like a Superman type of a character. He
totally it was a unabashed comic book. That movie was an unabashed comic book. I partially in if I have one major criticism of Quentin Tarantino's career, it's that he never truly grew up and made movies that were totally for adults. He makes movies about movies. He makes movies that are self-referential, that wink at the camera, that are aware of their own cleverness. He's an auteur in the truest sense. He makes movies in a way that is completely individualistic and singular. But I part of me wishes, I'm getting to a point here. Part of me wishes that he would have made movies that were like more dramatically sound, that were more adult in their thinking. But then you look at Django Unchained, and it's got a kind of teenager mentality to it. It's got a kind of comic book teenager mentality. But damn, I would not change it for the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like part of me is like, oh, grow up, Quentin Tarantino, and then the other part of me is, oh, you're so freaking good at this. Because by the end, when the house blows up and the horse dances and all that stuff, it's just how can you not love it? And
it's great.
Yeah,
it's great. Yeah. And even there are the anthropomorphic aspects of it, like him calling the plantation Candyland.
Yeah,
I thought that was really clever.
Yeah,
and I said anthropomorphic. What I meant was anachronistic.
Yeah,
it was so. That was a total wink to the camera. He was like, "Hey kids, this is just a movie. We're having fun here.
Right.
No one's actually getting hurt. Right. No one's feelings are getting hurt here.
Right.
And so when Leonardo DiCaprio can't say the N-word, as we all know from the behind the scenes interviews, it's understandable why he can't, because we're not supposed to do that. That's because it demeans the other, and you don't want to demean the other.
Yeah.
But but we're creating a world here, and in this world, these people don't have the same highly evolved or more highly evolved, sense of ethics and compassion, and they didn't care about black people because to them black people were less than
Right.
human.
Right.
So they were a different species.
Right.
And so and race science was a thing at the time,
Right.
which is completely ridiculous.
Right.
So our understanding of that time is very different because of the cat wants to get out, so I'm gonna let her out.
You're fine.
But or maybe she wants food. I don't know. Sorry, but she. Let's see here. I'm sorry about this. Man.
You're right. You're right.
So, I kind of lost my train of thought. It's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
The villains, we hate the villains for very good reasons.
Right.
The ending is cathartic. What was the name of Samuel L. Jackson's character?
I don't remember.
So his destruction at the end was well earned.
Yes.
Kerry Washington's character, she was just so sweet and lovable, and there were moments in it where we were concerned for her, that what was going to happen to her when she was talking to what was the other the German actor that we mentioned?
Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, what was that? Well, we were briefly concerned what was going to happen when she was with Christoph Waltz's character, but that our fears were immediately assuaged. We saw Jamie Foxx's tension. When what's going to happen here because the love of his life was on the other side of a door.
Mm-hmm.
When he was first meeting with Christoph, or when Kerry Washington's character was meeting with Christoph.
Right.
And I loved how they called each other little troublemaker, big troublemaker.
Right.
That was and Jamie Foxx actually has, I guess, his own horse, and so that was his own horse in the movie.
Nice.
So I mean, there's just so much about it that movie that is just lovable and worth. The characters that we love are worth loving. The characters that we hate are definitely worth hating.
I couldn't agree more.
I think Quentin Tarantino's character, who was one of who himself was a slaver, where he was like a miner, he was Australian.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a funny choice.
Yeah.
There are lots of. I didn't take notes on it. I'm just all remembering it. It's a really great film, and
yes.
And whether or not it deserves ranking among the best Hollywood films.
I agree. Sure. I agree.
I'm gonna let the cat out.
Okay, go for it. We'll just take a quick little.
She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to leave.
Okay. Well, moving on then to number 5, and again, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna call it Grindhouse, not Death Proof. Grindhouse, because I experienced Grindhouse. I saw it in the theaters, and it's number 5 on my Quentin Tarantino list because seeing that movie with both those movies together as one movie was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was just a really cool experience with the mock trailers in between the movies and the rough edits within the movies. They really worked together. Tarantino Rodriguez's movie Planet Terror was fast-paced, funny, gory. Tarantino's movie was a slow burn. It starts off, these girls are talking, driving, and then it erupts into this beautiful car chase. It's just Tarantino teases you into thinking, "Hey, I'm gonna bore you here," but then it's like by the end of it, it's like, no. It was a great ride. I don't like them separated. I've seen the movies when they released them on home video. The movie didn't do well in theaters. They released them separately on home video. They added scenes back in. They were longer movies. They just didn't have the same effect. They
Yeah.
weren't that spectacular on their own. They didn't work. They really are two movies like the Kill Bill movies. They need to exist hand in hand. They need to exist as one complete experience. The Grindhouse experience was a blast. Death
Yeah.
Proof on its own would probably be at the pretty much bottom of the list. And even it's not, neither of the movies are bad on their own. They're just not they're not as
Yeah.
special. But they are truly special together, and the Grindhouse experience of them together, I think, is just a blast. I think it's a truly special experience. What do you think, Luke?
I agree.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, and like, and it's a collab. It is a collaboration of auteurs that you
yeah,
really don't get to see very often, because
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
just
Totally.
Robert Rodriguez. It's also Eli Roth had his bit in it, and Edgar
Yeah,
Wright had his bit in it,
yeah.
and I
Rob
don't remember the
Zombie,
other directors involved.
Rob
But
Zombie. Yeah.
so, I mean, it is a fantastic popcorn experience.
Yes, it was
You
a
know,
one. That's a perfect way to put it. It was a wonderful
yeah,
popcorn experience.
yeah, yeah. It's an homage to the Grindhouse movies of old, and I really I my the only thing I don't really like about Tarantino's films, this is a true dislike, is that he indulges uh, foot fetishists.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
you know. I mean,
Every
he
director has their fetish.
yeah. So like, what David Finch would say, we're all perverts.
Yeah,
Everyone's a pervert. So whatever. I mean, I some directors, they like to have women in tight corsets, showing lots of cleavage, or they have nothing but butt shots. I understand. uh I'm I I think feet are kind of gross. So I'm not as, so that when Tarantino has feet dangling in our faces, I'm I'm just kind of check out for those moments. And I don't mean to be like ew, but
yeah.
at the same time I'm just kind of like, oh man.
There are a
Oh,
lot of foot shots in
yeah,
Grindhouse. There are a lot of
yeah,
in Death Proof. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it is a sexy movie.
It is.
And
It really is. It really is.
he I don't remember the name of the actress, but when she's at the jukebox, there is a really long butt shot of her,
Yeah. Yes.
doing,
Yes. I remember
this,
that scene.
back and forth.
I remember that
And
scene.
I'm just like, oh wow, man, this is the most juvenile film I've seen in a long time. But but it's fun. It's
But
fun.
artistically so. But colorfully so.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Well,
expertly so. Yes. But yes.
it's the parts that I like best are when um, Zoe Bell is going after Kurt Russell, and Kurt Russell is he uh, he was a lovable uh, jackass in Death Proof. I mean, he is so charismatic. You know, to for him to, I mean, for him to be a jackass at all, kind of really speaks to the quality um, of his caliber as an actor, because he is so charismatic. You know, how do you make someone that charismatic into a character that you cannot stand?
Right.
But he pulled it off. I
Right.
mean, his character, there were moments in Overboard where his character was kind of just an obnoxious jackass, but for the most part, Kurt Russell is the guy you root for, movies.
Right.
And for in Death Proof, how he gets are we running short on time, or are you looking
Nope.
at the?
Nope. I had a concern that we had stopped recording, but we're good. Or
Okay,
wait.
cool.
Wait.
Have we stopped recording?
We've stopped. No? Uh I don't think so. think we're good. It's just a second. Yeah, we're going. We're good. We're good. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Little
We can edit
technical
that
malfunction.
post.
Sorry about that, everybody.
It's
Uh, yeah. All right.
well,
Yeah.
Kurt Russell. But I mean, but yeah, he was a jackass in Death Proof, but that was the whole point.
Yeah.
You wanted Zoe Bell to kick the shit out of him at the
Sure.
end,
Sure. Absolutely.
and she
Absolutely.
did, and that was great fun to watch. And she herself is kind of a gem, and I mean, what I mean, I guess she was discovered for Kill Bill,
Right.
when she was Uma Thurman's
Stunt double.
stand-in double.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's fantastic.
Right.
And they talk about her in Tarantino's First Date or whatever, that documentary. They talk about how she had to reshoot all of her scenes in that because not all of her scenes, but when she was on the hood of the car,
Mm-hmm.
doing the what do they call, like, the mass post or whatever, the she's so used to hiding her face from the camera that they had to reshoot that incredibly dangerous scene because the whole point was so that we could see her face.
Right.
That was actually her on top of the hood of that car.
Right. Very cool.
Amazing.
I didn't know that. That's a cool story. I didn't know that. Yeah, she's great. She's great. I like seeing her pop up again in Hateful Eight too. So yeah, she's great. She's great.
Yeah, her character in Hateful Eight, when she got shot, man, it was like, oh really? They're gonna shoot her? She's the sweetest girl on the face of the planet. You're gonna kill her?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she really was a great find.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. All right, number 4. Jackie Brown. I love Jackie Brown. I think it might be this or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I would consider to be probably this, but it would be between those two titles. I would consider to be the most grown up movies that Quentin Tarantino ever did. His most mature movies. It's probably Jackie Brown if I was to really consider it and think about it, because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood really does wink at the camera, especially towards the end and all that. But we'll get into why that one works so well down the road. But Jackie Brown is I love the characters. I love the maturity. It's definitely a very evenly paced film. It's one of his longer movies. It's in the 2 hour 40 minute range. But man, I mean, I love this movie. I watch it every few years, and it's the Quentin Tarantino movie that I would say probably moves me the most. I'm really into the characters. I'm really into the Jackie Brown and the Robert Forster character. I love their relationship in the movie. I love how they aren't quite meant to be together, and you feel that at the end when they can't make it work. But yeah, it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful. I got nothing bad to say about it. I think it's one of his best works, and I think it deserves to be very high on his list. What do you think?
I totally agree. It's it's so mature because the actors are all of they're more seasoned than most of the other actors in his other movies. He often works with not necessarily actors who are fresh, but actors who don't have a million hours in front of the camera under their belt. But Pam Grier, was blaxploitation. For she made so many great female black action characters in the 70s.
Absolutely.
And Robert Forster was he was a great TV actor for a long time
Yeah.
before, and he had kind of been forgotten about.
And Quentin Tarantino has a talent and a passion for
Yeah,
rediscovering those great faces
yeah,
from the era he grew up watching, and God bless him for doing that. Because I
yeah.
love Robert Forster. I still try to seek out his movies whenever I can, and I owe it to Quentin Tarantino. I owe it to Jackie Brown. I wouldn't take note of Robert Forster if it weren't for Quentin Tarantino.
Was he in Hard Eight?
Not to my recollection. I
What?
don't
Well,
think Robert Forster was in that. I
what
could be
was
wrong, but I don't. Not. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't think so.
there's some movie that I saw him in about the same time as it wasn't exactly the same, but I it was just like some. Well, it doesn't matter. Anyhow, I'm trying. I can't place him in many other things other than, um, but I know that in his younger years, he was very much the thing, and he played tough, uh, uh, tough no nonsense characters. Not necessarily he did. I don't think he played villains, but he played characters that would brook no nonsense from anyone.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
but uh, he it was interesting to see him play a more sensitive role. I mean, he from
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
earlier TV cop days to that more or less what that character would look like in retirement.
Hmm.
If someone many after they I don't think that many people want to be police officers forever, uh, so they use that experience when what they uh, learn from the job, and the connections that they make on the job, and they take that and become private investigators or a bail bondsman or whatever, and then or FBI. Sometimes they transition from or become lawyers, whatever. But I think that uh, they have fuller histories than some of them do anyway. After they leave the force, and so it's interesting to see what that Robert Forster character would have evolved into.
Yeah.
As the bail bondsman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he brought some of that knowledge, or that imagined knowledge as that character to explain to uh, Jackie Brown's character how he thought the FBI and the DEA would have been thinking. He was said, there's this point in which he said, I think that what Michael Keaton's character, I don't remember his name,
Yeah.
but he said, I think that what he's doing makes a lot of sense, and I think that she worked out her strategy, to perfection because of Robert Forster's involvement. And I think that she survived in the end because of his willingness to be her rock,
Yeah.
and that he chose not to follow her, to Spain at
Right.
the end of the movie.
Right.
Made sense because she kind of scared him.
Yeah.
She kind of
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
was
She's
she
too much
was
for him. She's
yeah
totally
she's
too much for him. He loves her. He's heartbroken.
Yeah.
He's gonna pine for her the rest of his life. You know that.
yeah
But she's too.
yeah
It's unobtainable. He can't quite
yeah
have her, and that's what I love about that movie is that
yeah
ending scene. She's driving away, singing along to the car radio. He's kind of mesmerized by the kiss she leaves him with. It's just like you want those two to get together, but it's
yeah
kind of like, yeah, this is for the best. This is the way that it would
yeah
be in reality. They
yeah
just don't quite belong together, even though, man,
yeah
they've got a great chemistry, but
yeah, absolutely.
they just
And
don't belong together.
when on the flip side, when we think about the Samuel L. Jackson and Robert De Niro
Yeah.
and not Jane Fonda, Bridget Fonda,
Yeah.
that trio was what that was an interesting mix of characters as well, with the Samuel L. Jackson being kind of the minor criminal underlord, um, and who had a string of women and houses all over the LA area, and Robert De Niro being the the criminal who thought he knew better, and Bridget Fonda who Bridget Fonda, her character was just magic. And when Robert De Niro killed her, it was completely understandable why Samuel L. Jackson regretted killing Robert De Niro, but sort of at the same time, just like, how could he have done anything different?
Yeah.
Her ass was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
As he said, her ass was beautiful. Fuck you. and like, so many of those the choices that Robert De Niro's character made, you're like, well, that was something that I wouldn't have done. Well, that was something, but he's a criminal. If you have done any of the things that he had done, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But that's what's so great about Quentin Tarantino movies. He gets in the heads of these characters that are so different from us. And at the same time, we enjoy spending time with them for that hour and a half.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that, just like Robert Forster's character, that was fun. That's fun. Thanks. I'll enjoy the memories, but no, we got to go our separate ways, man. You're too much for me.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Number
really
3.
Was.
Yep. Number 3, Reservoir Dogs. Talked about it at the beginning. Saw it on home video the weekend it became available. It was my introduction to Tarantino, and I had never seen anything quite like it. I know it had its influences from a Ringo Lam movie called City on Fire, and of course from John Woo and Asian and Hong Kong cinema. But Quentin Tarantino, he steals from the best, as we discussed earlier, but he filters it out through his wild brain, and he steals, but it's always his own. He makes it his own. And that's what makes him the celebrated, one of a kind artist that he is today. And Reservoir Dogs, it's just I what can I say about it? It's got characters that before I had never really seen characters like this in a movie before, not like that talked as wrong. It just said words that were. Did they say that? Are they using? Are they saying that? The filmmaking was just, it was like, whoa, this guy knows how to use a camera, and it was just an amazing experience. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss of words as to say why it's so great. It's just it's a tightly paced movie. It's probably his most tightly paced movie. It moves at its own pace. What were you going to say?
It's so smartly done.
Yeah.
For his, he had made like my best friend's birthday party or something before that.
It was never finished.
So it's not one of his completed films.
Right.
And Reservoir Dogs, I think that it wasn't one of his finished films because from what I saw of it,
which one?
It just wasn't very good. I think it's called something like My Best Friend's.
My Best Friend's Birthday was never finished. So Reservoir Dogs was his debut movie.
But I've seen like clips from it, and I've seen like
I have to.
Yeah.
I have like 40 minutes of it.
It's not very good.
No.
The Reservoir Dogs is smart. It's tightly edited. It makes sense. It's every bit of it had to be there, and and I'm not saying that every line had to be in it. I'm saying that the pacing and the action was perfect, and the lines that were there worked.
Yeah. It's a 100-minute movie. I think it's right at the 100-minute mark, or like 101, 102 minutes. It's just it flies by. I mean, I've watched it in the last year or two, and it's pacing. I mean, that is just, I mean, I like Quentin Tarantino's subdued pacing that he's more
Yeah,
known for, but
yeah,
man, there's something about Reservoir Dogs that just it definitely flies by more than any movie he ever made.
yeah. Yes, and it's he.
And that's what
For,
I wanted from Hateful Eight. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. It's I'm glad. I'm glad that it was so tight because he wanted his first movie, a
Right.
filmmaker who has, when he makes his debut or her debut, if whatever, you want their debut to be as perfect as possible, so that
Right.
people can go back to and say, let's make it, let's make magic happen again. Let's
Right.
because the with investors, you want to sell them that the concept that you can capture lightning in a bottle, and you can deliver the same quality of art again and again and again. And Tarantino is one of the few directors who has done that.
Yeah.
And he delivered on the promise of, and I'm not saying that I know that Jackie Brown didn't have as much commercial success as Pulp Fiction, but his investors couldn't have been unhappy with his later releases,
Right.
and especially the investors who bought into Pulp Fiction after Reservoir Dogs.
Right.
And Reservoir Dogs was, it made him at Cannes, at in the Cannes Film Festival in France.
That was actually Pulp Fiction that won at Cannes.
No, it was that. I thought Reservoir Dogs was the one where
Reservoir Dogs was Sundance. Pulp Fiction was Cannes. Yeah.
What? So they didn't have like a midnight showing or anything at
they could have at Cannes. They could have, but I know that Reservoir Dogs premiered at Sundance. That was where it had its premiere. And Pulp Fiction was the Palme d'Or winner of 1994.
Okay, yeah.
So that's probably what you're thinking.
So there was I know that after people had seen Reservoir Dogs, all these directors wanted to sit down and have a meeting with Quentin Tarantino and pick his brain about like how he made it and everything. And evidently, the Quentin Tarantino ended up controlling the table. And he because he is the ultimate film nerd. Yeah. And the evidence of that is on the screen.
Absolutely.
And Reservoir Dogs, it is such a perfect film. And I'm not saying it's the best movie ever. No. What I'm saying is that there's not a single part of it that I can figure out how to improve upon.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. There is an argument to be made that, I mean, even more of his movies, there's 2 more movies to go that I would consider to be that I prefer, but I wouldn't call either of the movies that are remaining perfect. But Reservoir Dogs, there is an argument to be made that it's a perfect movie.
Yeah. It is. And ultimately, there are movies that I like more.
Sure.
But there are not any movies that I can figure out how to make better.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry. There are not any.
There are not many other movies that you can figure out how to make better. I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. When I watch a movie, like you probably, I'm watching a movie as 2 different people. I'm watching as a fan, and I'm watching as a filmmaker. Not necessarily a successful filmmaker, but a student filmmaker nonetheless.
Sure.
And so as a fan, I'm just like, wow, that's great. I really enjoyed it. But as a filmmaker, I'm like, would I have done that? How would I do better? And Reservoir Dogs is one of those movies, just like, man, how could you do that better? I don't think I could have done anything in that. There's some dialogue choices that maybe I would have chosen differently, or different facial expressions, but those are acting choices. Those aren't choices made by a director.
Sure.
Those aren't choices made by an editor.
Sure.
And Uh, I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know
There's not
criticism.
much else to say. There's not much else to say.
Yeah, seriously.
Number two, Pulp Fiction. Hard not to make it number one, given the influence that it has and everything.
Yeah,
Again, same with Reservoir Dogs. What can you say about Pulp Fiction that hasn't been said? I mean, I wouldn't change anything about this movie. I just watched it again around August. It holds up very well. It's definitely a product of its time. It's definitely
yeah.
a 90s movie. It isn't
It
a timeless movie.
it is a little dated.
It's
Yeah.
eight. What's up?
In that, you're right. In that, it is a little bit dated.
Yeah, it's dated. I don't. Dated is often used as an insult, and it is dated, but I don't mean it as an insult. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I
that's
understand
part
what you
of
mean.
its charm. Part of its charm is that it is such a whole.
90s film.
It's just such a complete product of its time.
Yeah,
It was, again, saw it opening. I saw it opening night in the theater. It
yeah,
was never seen anything like it. The way it played with linear narrative, the way it played with the writing, the actors, just the cinematography, everything about it was just like, wow, we are in the hands of somebody who really knows what they're doing. We're in the
yeah,
hands of somebody who's giving us things that we haven't quite seen before. We are in the hands of somebody completely new, and we're in the hands of somebody who's starting something completely new. Like this was it goes, in my opinion, it goes Star Wars, Pulp Fiction. There's not much in between those two movies that had the same kind of impact. Star Wars impacted Hollywood and the culture, and then Pulp Fiction impacted the Hollywood and the
yeah,
culture. I can't think of much that came in between it. But I mean,
yeah,
Pulp Fiction was that much of a phenomenon.
yeah. Absolutely.
And being there to witness it, I'm not talking much about the movie itself, but being there to witness that phenomenon was one of the most, as a film lover, was one of the biggest thrills of my life. And I
Yeah,
remember it fondly. It holds up well. What is there to say about it? Number two is Pulp Fiction. What do you think, Luke?
yeah. I think that in yes, insofar as that Spielberg controlled movies in the 80s. I mean, like so many of the movies that we think about from the 80s were Spielberg movies or
Right.
George Lucas movies.
Sure.
Whereas um, Tarantino defined, I don't know if he Pulp Fiction was the most important movie of the 90s, in my opinion. It was the most 90s movie.
I wouldn't
It
say
was
it's the best movie of the
no,
90s, but it was probably it had the biggest impact of any movie.
yes, exactly.
I think it was
Yeah,
the most impactful movie of the 90s.
which is ridiculous because they only made like for like $3 million or something, right?
Pulp Fiction, I think it was
Yeah.
9 million. I believe it was
So,
9 million.
so it wasn't like a $60 million movie.
No,
It wasn't $100 million.
it was 9 to
So
10 million.
so at the time, I mean the movies just that was a small budget for such a huge impact that it made. I mean that there's no way that Tarantino couldn't have done anything he wanted after that.
No.
And it really for me and for so many other people, it defined what the 90s was about.
Yeah.
And there are so many. I mean, there's so many scenes from that movie that just live forever in my head.
Yeah.
And I mean, from the Jackrabbit Slims scene to the Ezekiel 25:17, the recitation, to the get my bad mother. I want my bad motherfucker wallet. There Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, I know that he had been in other movies. I know he had been in Coming to America, and that he was the robber who got his ass kicked.
Yeah.
But he was such a revelatory character in Pulp Fiction,
Mm-hmm.
and and even seeing John Travolta, who I don't really think much of as an actor, his career was completely reinvented because of Tarantino.
Yeah.
And 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 that's really maybe not necessarily fair to John Travolta because he is a great performer. He can move on screen like very few other people can.
Yeah.
And he, as a tall man, that's probably not very easy.
Yeah.
So he,
How tall is he?
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I don't
but,
know.
But I know he put on some weight for that movie, and
I think he had the weight on already. I think he put the weight on. I don't think it was for the movie.
Well, then never mind then.
Yeah.
But he's a very imposing looking man on that, and then but when he gets in that dance scene with Uma Thurman, and I've heard his character being described as one of the worst criminals in film history. So incompetent.
Yeah.
He actually cost his boss a lot of money.
Yeah.
By insulting Bruce Willis's character in the bar. Bruce Willis. That may have been the moment that Bruce Willis decided. Well,
that is the moment. That is the moment when the camera twirl, the way he looks at him. Yeah, I mean that is the moment where he's just like, I'm not doing this. I'm not selling out my pride for this.
Yeah.
So
so when later John Travolta's character he's talking to Eric Stoltz's character, the drug dealer. And he says, someone keyed up my car. I got this car out. It had been he had been in storage while he was in Amsterdam. Someone keyed my car. Someone, it's been in storage. Who was it? Who was it that keyed up his car? It was Bruce Willis's character who keyed the car. It's just like, well, fuck you, man. And so that was the beginning of the end for John Travolta's character, and his own downfall should have been able to foresee it. The fact that he couldn't recognize the miracle where he when he and Samuel L. Jackson, all those bullets went straight through them and hit the wall but didn't hit them at all.
Yeah.
So Samuel L. Jackson said that was a miracle, and and that should have been the message to both of them to get out.
Yeah.
But because John Travolta's character didn't interpret the same way, he gets killed.
Yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Very much.
But so like but why? So then why did Ving Rhames' character invest so much time and energy in him? Because he's fun to hang out with, and that's why he sent him on a date with his wife, because he was out of town and he wanted to have his wife to have a fun time, and she wanted to win that dance trophy. So
very much
and then at the end of it, there's actually a happy ending, because it doesn't end with the death of his character. They re-edited the sequence so that the ends with the Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta just walking happily out of the restaurant.
Yep. It plays with nonlinear filmmaking, and I mean it has a novelistic approach to it, and it was so ahead of its time. It really was. It was amazing. It was amazing to see at the time. It was like, man, I've never seen that in a movie before. Yeah, that was awesome.
It's I think it owes a large part to French New Wave.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
So few others really capture that nonlinear, I just have never seen a movie like that before, and it really was a revelatory experience.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm so thankful to Tarantino that he gave us that movie.
I am too. I'm very thankful to him for that. All right. And moving on, my number one for Quentin Tarantino is the only one left, and that's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Why is it my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie? I'm not going to say it's even his best movie. I'm not sure if I could name his best movie, and if I was going to objectively state his best movie, it would probably be Pulp Fiction. But my personal subjective choice is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood because it sums up his career beautifully. Uh,
Yeah.
if I'm not sure, I know he's going to call it quits after 10 movies. I'm not sure he should even bother with the 10th movie because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was the perfect end to his career. It sums up what Quentin Tarantino is all about. It's revisionist history. It's giving us the ending that we all want, but it doesn't do it in a cop out fashion. It does it in a way that's earned and creative and rewarding. It gives us this ending to this terrible real life tragedy that we all want, and it does it in a way that it's like this is not only what Quentin Tarantino is all about, this is what the movies are all about. And
Yeah.
it's a movie about loving movies. It's a movie that has, and even though it's a movie set in Hollywood, the Cliff Booth character, the Leonardo DiCaprio character, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, the Brad
It's
Pitt,
supposed to be forgettable.
yeah, the Brad Pitt character and the Leonardo DiCaprio characters, they work in the film industry, but they're real. They feel like real people.
Yeah.
They feel like real people with real issues and dark histories and complex motivations. And I think they're the most, along with Jackie Brown, they're the most adult characters he ever created. But
Yeah.
within that, he still has his camera wings. He still has his celebrations of popular culture. He still has his love of shocking, abrupt violence. It's just all around. This is the movie that Quentin Tarantino has been building up to his entire career. I think it's the. It, I mean, unless he really amazes me with his 10th movie, I think this is the movie he should go out on. I think it's amazing. As an adult, this movie came out in what, 2018, 2019. I don't go to see movies hardly in theaters at all anymore, let alone more than once. I went and saw this 3 times at the theater, and for me to do that, yeah, for me to do that at my age, that's really cool. It made me feel like I was in my 20. It made me feel like I was in my 20s again when I did go do that and go see movies 5, 6, 7 times, or maybe not that much, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, I just love it. What do you think, Luke?
I absolutely agree. So, this is without a doubt our Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert, two thumbs up,
Yeah,
yeah, moment.
yeah.
We see this lockstep. Uh, there is no other movie that Tarantino has done that is more of a love letter to Hollywood.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
he it's specifically he goes out of his way to show us what filmmaking really was like back then. The what the struggles that actors um, and stuntmen and producers and
Yeah.
crew, the hair and makeup people, all of those people, their motivations were on display in Once Upon a Time. And but then Cliff's character gets more developed, and we see him, we see other layers of his character, and he's not the most he isn't the deepest character, but his motivations for doing everything and being like a leaf on the wind, more or less, and just going where life took him, it was fascinating. And I think I didn't have a problem. I don't ever have a problem when filmmakers rewrite history,
Right.
and it really was interesting when he had the Charles Manson family come make that visit, and he kicked their asses. It was great. He, you know,
Thrilling moment,
I, I,
wonderful. I
yeah,
howled when I saw that. I
yeah, it was
It was
great.
gleeful. It was cathartic, like we said about Django
Yeah,
Unchained. It was just like, yes,
yeah,
this is earned.
absolutely.
This is earned.
Yeah, they the what's the name of the that ridiculous not Snoopy or her character. What was the name of her character? The one who
Oh, pussy.
no, not the that the that's the young lady who
With Bruce Dern.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the young lady who got who was hitchhiking. I'm thinking of the three that ended up
Oh
there,
yes, that was the one. Yes.
who were in the end
Oh
scene with
yeah, I don't remember their names. One of the guy who Austin Butler played Tex. That's the only
Tex.
name I
Yeah,
remember. I don't
he
remember
got
their
his, and then one of them was something from the anyhow.
I don't remember.
It doesn't
It
really
doesn't.
matter. That
It doesn't matter.
they um they I wish the only thing I wish was that we had seen maybe like experience Cliff having an LSD flashback, or
Yeah. Yeah.
with him tripping. I think if we had seen some of that thrown in, that's the only thing I think was missing from that scene.
Sure.
Uh, but I mean, I don't know how you could do that any better than Fear and Loathing did it.
Right.
In
Right.
Tulsa. So
Personally, I don't think we needed to see his LSD trip. I think just seeing the effects it had on him and him getting stuck with the knife and kind of playing with the knife, I thought that was perfect. Like we were
it
saying,
was.
like we were saying about Reservoir Dogs. Why mess with perfection? I couldn't
I
see it
know.
the other way. I don't think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is perfect. I think it's
No.
definitely flawed. I think its pacing is a little off. I'd still 100% give it an A. I adore the movie, but just
Yeah.
nitpicking, I think it could have been both like I said about Inglorious Bastards, it could have been both a little tighter paced and a little looser paced in certain areas. I would have liked for it honestly, as long as that movie it was in the 2 hour 45 minute range. I could have sat through it for 3 hours 15 minutes. I think it could have gone on a little longer. I think they could have developed Charles Manson a little more, but it's all just nitpicking because again, this is my number one Quentin Tarantino movie. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think for good reason, because what you want out of a filmmaker is for them to get better as they get older.
And
As
he
they
did
make.
with this one. He
Yeah.
did with this one.
Yeah, it really is awful when an artist makes their greatest work too early in their career.
Well, he did do that though. He did kind of do that because Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction were like my number two and three.
Yeah,
Everything else that came after wasn't quite as good, and that is a complaint I have about
yeah.
him. But I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that's where he really surprised me again, and I'm like, okay, he's back to where he was when he started.
Well, and it's the reason why I hope he doesn't quit making films. I hope that um because he hasn't made a science fiction film yet.
Right.
You know, he as far as I'm concerned, that a great science fiction film is what's missing.
Yeah.
And I say great because all of his films are great. So
Yeah.
if and I know that he doesn't dislike science fiction. He was a fan of the Buck Rogers TV show, and
Well,
he
he was going to possibly for his last movie. There was speculation that it might be a Star Trek movie. Did
so
you hear
that's
about that?
I
It was going to
I
be R
have a
rated.
rumor.
It was going to be R rated. It was more than a rumor. He was working on the script with somebody. He wasn't
Mhm.
writing it himself, but he was working on the script with somebody. and he never was committed to directing it, but there was a lot of he was circling it, but he is apparent in the last few years he said no, I'm not going to do that. But that would have been pretty freaking cool, a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek movie.
Yeah, it would have been the mind that created Jackrabbit Slims.
Yeah,
That created Red Apple cigarettes, which has been a staple, in so many of his films. They that that borrowed Pai Mei, in a way that did honor to Asian cinema. I want to see what he would do to science fiction, and I mean, his favorite movies, are from the 70s for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, he respects other filmmakers of his generation. There is, and they have his respect. I can't imagine how if he chose the right collaborators, to either help him, with as producers or editors or whatever, how he couldn't deliver a great science fiction film, because
I would eat up a Quentin Tarantino science fiction movie. I would eat it up. I would eat it up. It would be the most Quentin Tarantino science fiction movie ever made, but I think that'd be a cool thing.
I mean, Logan's Run, and other movies of other science fiction movies of the 70s, have been lost. And I don't mean that they've been lost in that they don't survive, in DVD or in streaming or whatever. I mean, they've been more or less forgotten by the viewing public.
Forgotten, by everybody except for strict film enthusiasts. But
and Tarantino, as the ultimate film enthusiast, if he doesn't do a science fiction film, we will all. I don't want to force his hand. Not that him watching this video is going to force his hand anyway. Sure. But man, those are so for someone who has had such a great impact on film and who could influence future filmmakers, for him not to dip his toe in that water, and maybe, I doubt he's intimidated by it. Maybe he just hasn't. But if he does do a 10th film, that's what I hope he would do.
Yeah.
And past that, this is a frequent theme with me. I hope he does a video game.
Yeah.
I would love to play a with some of his dialogue, and
that'd be awesome. A Quentin Tarantino video game would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he creates such great characters, and if you step into any of those characters, and you would have an epic moment, a video game moment that you'd be felling over for days afterwards.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. I am so glad that Tarantino is among us.
I am too. I am too. Whatever nitpicks I have against him, I think he's one of the most important filmmakers of our time. I think he is, beyond being a filmmaker, he's a cultural phenomenon. I think he's influenced movies and our culture in general in countless and just irreplaceable ways. I think he's a one-of-a-kind individual, and I, for one, am thrilled that I've gotten to witness his work and experience the changes that it had on filmmaking.
Yeah. So. I understand the criticisms that are made of his work.
Yeah.
That and I try to be sensitive towards those criticisms, but my enjoyment of his films, my appreciation of him as a filmmaker and as a fan of films, as a peer, I'm not that I am a filmmaker anywhere nearly as accomplished as him. My student films are grossly inadequate by comparison.
Sure.
But his, in a sense, he is one of us,
Sure.
and he is as he is, a compadre, a brother, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He is our favorite. He is our favorite son, and I really hope for the best for him for the rest of his career, however long or short it may be.
I hope so too. Well said. Well said. All right. Well said. Good words to end on. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. This has been Other People's Movies, and we will see you next time.
Peace.